The boss there of Equinor. Let's talk now to Amy Miller, who's the chief executive of Pragma. It's a company that says it's working towards a pragmatic approach to the energy transition. Good to have you here. And so the boss there of Equinor saying that the energy transition is moving slower than anticipated, so they'll rein back on some of their renewables and spend more investing in oil and gas. That's not the right direction, is it, for the environment?
I think we need to reframe the discussion slightly and remove some of the polarization that's really come up, in particular in the UK and Europe, where there's this feeling that, fossil fuels are bad and renewables are good. And actually, it's much more complicated than that. And I think, we need to understand that the reality is that all forms of energy are needed in order to supply the increased demand that we see globally. There are pros and cons to renewable technologies in the same way that there are to fossil fuel technologies too.
But is there an argument here that, we need to be investing in this renewable stuff now? You're absolutely right that we need to sort of make that gradual transition away from fossil fuels, but that takes time. We know that renewable facilities will take time to come online, to be built, to start generating in the quantities that we need. So how much of a setback is an announcement like this?
I actually don't think it's a setback at all. I think the UK upstream oil and gas industry has achieved huge goals around methane reductions. Between 2020 and 2022, which is only 2 years, they've achieved a 29% reduction in those emissions in the North Sea. If we start looking at importing oil and gas into the UK on a wider basis, that really ramps up our carbon intensity about 3 or 4 times the amount of what we're able to do domestically. So I think there is, a transition. The word explains exactly what it is. It takes time, and if we can, in the meantime, look at reducing those carbon emissions and carbon intensity from UK oil and gas domestically, whilst we invest in technologies for the future, I think that can only be a good thing and not a step back at all.
Yes, and I suppose the reality in all of this is that we need to keep the lights on. The country needs energy, it needs electricity, and it needs to be able to find ways of generating that, and that will still involve fossil fuels.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think there are a few headlines that came up in the kind of general media press over the last couple of weeks that in the first week of January, we were just a couple of hours away from a blackout in the UK. The National Grid have been spending quite a bit of money advertising on social media around what to do if there was a blackout, if there was a power cut. And I think that's really a worrying signal that we need to think about the reality of what this means. We need to be able to keep the lights on, as you say. We need to be able to keep heating our homes. And using the washing machines and the microwaves and everything else that is just part of normal life. And in order to do that, we need all forms of energy, including gas, in the UK to do that.
Amy, good to talk to you. Thank you. We will talk
Thank
again,
you.
but good to have you here. Amy Miller there, the Chief Executive of Pragma.